Hello everybody and welcome back to episode 3 of my tutorial series for Songs of SYX version 63. So last time we left off with the city like this. We're building a huge farm here and a huge farm there. We're currently not seeing the resources for these. We need vegetable and fruit to get the production primed, but it's going to be okay. So the first thing that I want to do here is I want to set up a couple of crates for these to make sure that whatever we gather will be kept safe in the warehouse. This will keep our people a little bit busy, but that was not all that we have done in the last episode. I have also built the first laboratory here. So we got ourselves the first 10 researchers, and I want to talk today a little bit more about what research does mean for us, where it does get us. But in the meantime, let me increase those crates a little bit because rock and stone are very, very important. So science is, well, if you have played games like these, you might be already pretty much having a hunch what it is all supposed to be good for. It is, of course, progression by unlocking new things. But first off, let me explain to you how science in Songs of SYX works. It's a little bit different than the most games that I've played before. So science points in this game get earned by scientists. So far, so familiar. But as soon as the scientists stop working on the science, this will deteriorate again. So basically, knowledge gets lost. What this means is that our scientists will have to work forever here. Because if they won't, we will lose our science points and then we will lose the technologies again, which is very, very unfavorable and very much not what we want to happen. So this is the science tree. And here we see how much science points there are available, how many science points there are available for us. So it is ordered like that. We have here the civics. This is unlocking mostly new services. This is about unlocking new ways of doing science and spreading knowledge, upgrading our farming output, upgrading our pastures, refining, upgrades, and unlocks, combat. You see it's a little bit tiny. Crafting, that's unlike refining, that's when we use refined goods to craft something new out of these. Mining unlocks and upgrades, healthcare, and miscellaneous things, mostly trading and such related. For starters, this tree around civics is going to be the most important one for us. Mostly because we will unlock here the new services that lack for our town. So the first few things that you can unlock are stages, graveyards, rations, well, these lead to the tavern and the canteen, and lighting. So lighting is the one that I would recommend the least. The most impact you'll have by unlocking the graveyard burial, because this unlocks the graveyard, so we won't need any mass graves anymore. I'd still suggest you to have a mass grave available. At times it is quite useful to have these. If you have way more dead people than you can handle at once, it's better to have a place where you can dump them, but although this spot here ain't that good. So, graveyard. Let's get started with that. The graveyard will fulfill the need of people to have a burial spot. It's quite obvious, but it does provide a lot more attractiveness to your city. So we are going to put that down, well, right next to there. It doesn't really matter. Shouldn't be too far away from where people are living at. So we're putting this up here, and the graveyard consists out of quite a lot of pots here, as you can see, with the most important being the graves themselves. So this is where we upgrade the total amount of people that can be buried here. So graves in Songs of SYX work like this. They will empty automatically after a while, basically. So if people are dead long enough, the room they are taking up will be freed up. So all the other items except for graves that are placeable here add up respect to the place. I still haven't built a single graveyard without 100% respect. I haven't built a single workshop without 100% efficiency. It is quite easy in this game to fulfill these things to a maximum efficiency, and I really don't know why you shouldn't. So here it's all about filling in things until you hit that 100% respect meter. Sometimes, as you see there, you might have added in too much. It's important to note that the more graves, the more fluff items you'll require to give this place the respect it requires. If you ever run out of place, you can also just expand the room here like that. And we're just going to add in some more flower beds here on the side lane. So here we go. All in all, as you see, the building only requires wood and stone, and I deem the graveyard as one of the most powerful things in the early game, because, you know, let's build one and I'll show you. So currently 9 people are aspiring immigration to our place. Come on, let's pick them up, because we can use more people currently. So let's go into super fast mode, and here we can watch them go for their business. I love this, you know, I really do. And as soon as the graveyard is built, well, it's not even done yet. Yeah, here, check this out. You see, there's even 3 yellow arrows now, and you can see here in the religion, the spar goes way up. I will explain these areas here rather sooner than later, but not today. It's just worth mentioning that every service that is new to your city leads to a huge influx of popularity in your city. And as you see here, we are getting more and more people that want to live here. This effect is not going to be reproduced with every graveyard that you build. So don't think that you now just need to spam graveyards to keep your city big. There is always a limit to the impact of these actions. So, well, now we're going into it. So let's click that religion tab, and I want to show you what I mean. So in a nutshell, here you see what your people prefer and how well these needs are fulfilled. That's what the screen here is showing. We're sticking to the religion for today, and here you see there is a meter about graveyards, and that is fulfilled to 100%. That means more graveyards won't make my city more attractive. This is currently the only thing that I want to point out here. And if you want to change that, you just need to let the city grow. As there are more people, again, there will be more need for these. But it's worth mentioning that there's a need for graveyards, but there's also a need for crypts. So the moment we build a new crypt, things will skyrocket again. The moment we build something which generates faith, things will skyrocket again. This is something that is a recurring theme in this game, and it's worth checking it out and keeping an eye out on it. Here the farms are slowly being filled up with the materials. We are gathering them out in the wild. Priming your production like that will take several years, but as you see here, we are currently in no need of any extras. We have super many people that want to join our ranks if we want to. I'd say all in all, we're off for a good start. So the expansion of your city will now be up in your hands. I always keep saying that I don't like to pick up new immigrants if I don't have enough food available. So I personally always recommend to watch and see how the food situation evolves if you are facing a lot of aspiring immigrants. But as you see here, we are currently generating food in a positive numbers. We have here an event warning us from temperature plummets. We have a hearth, so we're off fine with that. So yeah, we get more food than we need, so we can authorize all 21 of them. You can also just change how many you want there, and that's that. So as soon as we pick up those folks, our city's happiness is plummeting again because, you know, Several reasons. The major reason is that whenever you pick up people, there's the needs of your city are rising. As a matter of fact, it's a tad bit more complex like that, but I want to simplify it like that for today. So currently, a good way is like when you have those new buildings, just slap more scientists afterwards in your lab and check out what's the next thing that you have that you can unlock. So stages are the next thing that we're going for, but they are a little bit of a double-edged sword because they will come with a need for a material that we can't provide currently on our own. But it's again, you know, it's a new service and I highly recommend unlocking it. So stages, boom, here we go. So let's set up a first stage. So stages come in three sizes: the booth, the bandstand, and the pavilion. So what they have in Familia, oh, I forgot. My bad. We are all good. So only the bandstand requires cut stone. We can actually build the booth already with the furniture we got. Brilliant. Later we will need cut stone, which is refined stone. Basically, that's, well, think about Roman architecture, and you are at Cutstone. At least that's how I imagine it. So we're going to set up a booth here in this corner here, just like that. And that's the next step again. So somebody is suffering from low temperatures. But as long as these things are always keeping on or staying on one person, things are quite okay. So here now it goes. 4 people get employed here. You can, if you need to cut down on people, most of the time you don't need the full employment, but I like to have them on my payroll for a while. And now you'll see that another new need will rise up. We get new immigrants out of that. Let's see here, in the services tab. It's a little bit less prominent, but well, now I'm going into it after all. So here in the services area, it's comparable to the religion, but here we see all the things that are services for the city. We have already covered the need for a spot, we have already covered the need for a new spot, and as you see here, the stage that we've built is currently fulfilling the need for a stage. These things, they happen procedurally, you know? That's, you know, here you see it. It's not happening like snap and then you're up. It's slowly rising or slowly falling. And the larger your city will grow, the more of these buildings you'll need. Currently, at the start, when your city is starting out, you'll be okay with 1 building of each. Very, very simple things. The goal of the strategy that I'm following here is quite simply said, I want to have always enough new people to fulfill the new jobs in terms of food generation, and I want to have enough people that can research new things so I can get more people. One of the worst things that can happen to you in Songs of Six early game is that you get locked out of immigrants. This strategy does negate that risk. So another good technology to pick very early on is trade negotiations. Here it tells you that bartering is going up 10%, but there's a little bit of an odd thing about this game. So check this out. We have now a buy price of 3 and a buy price of 8 on these goods. So we upgrade bartering now. And the price increases to 5 and 13. That's not 10%. That's a little bit more. A little bit much more. So in a nutshell, the bartering technology will give you those denaries faster. And especially very early on, I do like to sell my goods to generate some money to prime up productions like these. For example, here I personally, if this wouldn't been a tutorial series, I would be strongly considering to pump up the production here via trade, by just buying that fruit. As you see here, we are generating a certain amount per year, but really not that much. Okay, so what's up next? I'm going to fast forward now until those farms are built, because this is, well, the very next thing I want to get finished. So I'll do that quickly off cam and I'll talk to you then. Alright, took only about a year. I bought some vegetables, to be honest, because our farming spots seem to be really crappy, and here these things now go up. I have now watched my city a little bit. As you see here, the food went up, and that means we actually don't need all that food that we will be producing here, but that's okay. I really don't mind. Like I said several times in Songs of Six, there is no such thing as too much food. It just no. If anything, it makes up for a good trade material. So these farms now will require a lot of workers. As you see here, we have a lot of immigrants waiting, and here with all that time that had passed, we can very well see how much of an impact this had. It does take a while until the impact fully shows, but it shows. Alright, so there's one farm, and one farm eats up a whopping amount of 32 field hands. Yes, if you build the farms large like I do here, oh, we have a disease, well, it's not minded too much. If you build super large farms like I do here, you'll always end up at some point with so many people blocking it. So in a nutshell, if you don't have that amount of workers available, you don't need to bring up so many people on the farm right away immediately. Consider it more as an option to have so many workers on the fields. It's not you must have that many workers on the fields, you can have that many workers on your fields. So that's the difference. But if it bothers you to have such a long waiting time, by all means, you can also cut them smaller. But I personally, the longer I played this game, the more I became a big fan of going big right from the get-go. So here I add up some housing for the farmers. Just a side note on going big right from the get-go. It's just like, it's always for me been way more work to build another farm later rather than waiting a little bit longer for the first one. That's just my personal opinion behind that. But I think here we can agree that there are very many ways leading to success, alright? Just don't want to give you a false impression here. I am absolutely not a big fan of how to put it. I don't believe in solutions that in things that have only one solutions, unless it's math. All right, so we have now 25 people on the veg farm, but as you see here, we don't have that kind of workers available, and we won't have it available in the next couple of days. So we are going to reduce that down to 11. So we keep a skeleton crew here and have a 1/3 productivity on that thing. And that's okay for now. So here you see lots of homelessness occurring. That's always happening when such huge projects like these get established. And with that also comes now the need. All the people that are working up here do have the same needs as the people down here. So we are starting to expand the city over a larger distance. That means we have to think about expanding our services as well. But don't worry, I'll show you the ropes. It's very simple, actually. Currently, the next really big and interesting thing for us will be to wait for the first big harvest of fruit. Simply because the Craytonians love fruit and vegetable, that these are their favorite food types. Favorite food is very important because it's another way of boosting the happiness in your city. So when you check out the question mark thing here, every species has their food preferences. We can still add up bread to make them even happier, but you know, other species have other favorite foods. So if we gather up some Dondorians, they'd love the fish that we already got, for example. And that's why I forced this huge fruit farm on us, because, you know, This way, we'll have a lot of material to work with. It could be actually all we need for a long, long time. Probably we'll set up another farm, probably not. We'll see about that. By the way, if there is a very low amount of homelessness, I like to call it residual homelessness, just wait it out. Quite often it is just a symptom of people not moving, not having moved in yet. These things take some time. Songs of SYX is generally a game where many changes and things that happen swing in rather slowly, so take up some patience. Alright, so these things will carry us now through the next phases of the game. The fruit and the veg farm will produce so much food that we will have a production explosion in no time. So, let's head up over to the technology because we are not done yet for today. No, far away from being done. So the other technologies over here are not interesting for us currently. Arena, tombs, and temples don't not only cost a lot, they will also require materials that we cannot provide currently. Discovering rations is imperative. We need that because we can now unlock taverns and canteens. Currently not, because I don't have the necessary tech points, but I could. Also, rations are a nice trade good. For one, here. Price-wise, they are pretty okay, $5 each. Compare that to fruit and veg and all these things. It's not that insanely good, but most important about rations, they have a very, very low spoilage rate. So basically, if you want to sell food, transforming it into rations beforehand is a pretty cool idea. But that just as a thought why the ration maker is quite cool. I won't build one directly, that's why I'm covering it like that. So, we are going to go down here to the health tab next. We're going to hire us a physician. So the physician is the precursor to the hospital, basically the person that's taking care of the health of people here before we have a large institution behind that. Here, by the way, first fruit and veg harvest comes on in, and with that, the happiness here in form of excess, because they have now access to new food types. Here you go, food pref, blue bar depicting the happiness in incurring. Okay, so physician, let's go. So the physician requires items that we don't have currently, tools and cut stone. But I must say, if we'd wait until we have access to these materials, it would take much longer than our city would really want to. Whatever, you get the idea. I will just import the goods that we require, because you see here we are currently already earning a nice amount of denarii on the side. So I strongly recommend you to find something in your city that you can steadily export for a nice amount of denarii, because I made the experience it pays off so much. You know, having access to some money which allows you to buy the stuff that you're not able to produce is basically mandatory in this game, you know. You won't be able to set up a city that can produce and provide everything it requires all on its own. I don't think that is even intended by the dev. Trading and commerce is something that's just, you know, ingrained in the base code of the game, basically. So here we hit quality 100%, and you see we require 62 cut stone and 84 tools. The biggest problem behind that is, again, we not only need them to build that thing, we of course will need to have some of them at our stockpiles to keep to handle the upkeep. So step one, we are going to buy the necessary items again, and here things will get really nasty, because, you know, we're no longer importing shabby stuff. Cut stone is usually not that cheap. Let's see. currently we're paying 45 bucks per unit, so there you go. And I'd strongly recommend you to buy at least 100, because, you know, otherwise we will have not much for the upkeep, and with tools things will be even worse. There you go. So the physician is something you could very much also stall and put back in the time frame and the time order. Let's pick up a hearth over here. Give me a sec. One thought after. You could delay that, because as you see here, the materials that we require are really hard to pick up. But at this point of the development curve, you will have to bite a bullet one way or another. If you'd be picking up taverns, you'd be requiring pottery. If you'd be picking up canteens, you'd be requiring coal as a fuel, constant fuel. Oh, speaking about fuel, that's maybe why the people have exposure. Wood's empty. And the list goes on. Every one of these new buildings, the arena would require weapons, the tombs would require cut stone, the temples would require even much harder obtainable items, and yeah, and we have the first wave of deaths here in the city because people are freezing. So that's, by the way, what happens if you don't keep up with your stockpiles. This all happened just because somebody forgot to cut trees for the winter. And as you see here, things are escalating quite quickly here as well. This brings me up to another really important thing about this game. There is no real loss condition behind Songs of SYX. We just unemploy a couple of people here, take care that you keep the science running. Let's unemploy the carpenters. Let's suspend that. Here we go, just a little bit in emergency mode. And we cut back on the fishermen. There we go. What's very important in that situation is that we get people up and running to get the fire material up. So usually it's a lot easier to avoid these things, but in this scenario I just talk too much, you know. But I'm not unhappy that this happened, because this showed clearly how important it is to keep your stockpiles up. In my own defense, I must say I've never built a city that high up in the north, but as long as people can be buried properly, as long as the public order can be maintained, people will get back to normal at some point, you know? It's just very crucial that you have the amount of workers available to bury people, and you have the spot available to bury people. Very, very important. Because once people are unburied lying in the streets, that's where things get nasty. That's where people also get very grumpy, and where diseases start to spread. But I repeat here, there's no real loss condition I know of. I don't know what happens if your last person dies. I guess then you actually do lose the game. But it does take quite some effort to actually pull this off. And as you see here, people are being buried. What's also very important in a scenario like that, it does pay off to shift left click to copy this and set up a second graveyard. Out of the simple reason we are completely out of burial spots. Here I'm not building the second graveyard because I want to have happiness in any regard. I want to be sure that I have enough burial spots in the time being, because if now more people would be dying and there would be no spot to bury them, that's what's making people really, really unhappy. So in a nutshell, always keep some graves available. There's nothing worse than having no more graves or crypts available. If you have crypts and you don't provide enough crypt area, things get even worse. So here people are a little bit unhappy for a moment, but you see here, there was this spike. There was just this spike where people were growing unhappy because the graveyard was full. this was, if I wouldn't have built that graveyard, we would have had another downward spiral, because then more unhappiness would have allocated, more people would have gone away after some point. Some point they start rioting and kill each other, but this'll stop. And it's just like when people freeze. At some point, people stop dying / leaving the city, and then you can rebuild. But the lesson behind all this, every service that provides happiness will be a engine of destruction against you if you ever fail to provide that service anymore. People hate you if you suddenly don't provide what was normal before. That's the very, very important lesson behind that. So, that's been enough for one episode. That's been quite adventurous, I think, and I hope you guys enjoyed. So next episode, we're going to set up the physician. I think I'm going to grind up the necessary denaries for the tools in between the episodes, so yeah. And then we're going to go down deeper on the road of city development. And feel free to leave me your comments down below. Always happy to hear from you, as you all know. And as usual, feel free to leave a thumbs up. I'd be deeply, deeply appreciating. And leave a subscription. I'd be totally down for that. Here we have unlocked a new title. Now I'm at the outro when new titles get unlocked. There. Leave a subscription, be so kind, and if you want to stay updated, just hit that bell thing. That title, by the way, does nothing except for unlocking a few things. So, have a wonderful day, thanks for hanging out with me here, and I hope I can unlock this game for you as well. See you next time, and have a good one.